Colibrium. Okay. Today I am playing a little game called Colibrium, which is like a color blending game, a Zen game about focus, balance, and flow. It raises a bunch of different questions and things we can talk about. Can you use colors and color mixing and color recognition as a gameplay mechanic? Let's just take a look at like first impressions. I do really like this kind of app icon at the top. It is putting me in mind of things like Headspace and these kind of like meditation apps, so that kind of feels right. I'm not sure the rest of the graphic design fully goes with it, particularly the way those stars are going around the start button. But let's just see what the game actually is before we delve into the kind of visual communication stuff that's going on here. So I can choose my game type, there's a challenge and there's a Zen. No challenges, only relaxation in Zen mode, sounds great. And challenge mode, as you mix and match colors, the game gets harder adapting to your skill. Okay, we're gonna go with that because it seems to be normal mode. Goal, make the screen color match the color below. Okay, hold your fingers on the screen to make yellow stars. Stars make the screen yellow. Okay, let's see that. Try 2 or more fingers. Tap the rocket to switch modes. Swipe the glowing stars. And my stars are turned into astronauts, and it's going red now. Okay. Astronauts make the screen red. Almost there. Color matched. Cool. Okay, match this color. Okay, now blend red and yellow to make orange. I like the sort of general idea of this, but there's already something that's bothering me, and it doesn't mix in the way that I would personally expect it to, and it feels like it goes paler before it goes darker, and that's not really how most people ever really interact with color. You know, I've just added red to yellow, and we've gone from like a pale yellow to a pale orange. The thing is that most people's perception of color mixing is based on chemical mixing of pigments, like when you mix paint together, or where you see things mixed together in food, like when you make a smoothie. I'm guessing that it's working on like the way that the numbers for hues and saturations work in code. But unfortunately, my perception as a player of this is that, you know, when I start adding the red, it's going to get darker, and it sort of doesn't really match up with my expectation. The red items add the red coloring, and the yellow items add the yellow coloring, and the kind of amount of items on the screen increase the overall kind of saturation or depth of the color, which kind of makes sense, but it's just those early stages where the color is very pale. Doesn't feel like it's mixing and blending in the way I'd expect. I'm almost there. Match this color. Okay, cool. Color matched. Or it doesn't feel like the lightness and the saturation change in the way I'd expect. It would be easy to see this game and go, oh, it's not very colorblind friendly. But I do think it is okay to have a game where the skill being tested is your ability to recognize and manipulate color, if that is the core premise of the game. This is a game that is all about your perception of color. It still doesn't feel, it feels like a computerized idea of color that is not really in sync with what anyone who's interacted with color in the physical world of chemicals and light actually expects to happen when they mix those two colors together. And I understand that this is just a different color system. It's how computers mix color based on whatever your engine is using, whether it's using hex colors or whatever. I would expect this red to mix quite quickly, but we kind of get a pale orange first for quite a long time. I have to add quite a lot of those astronauts before it starts to really get any sort of orangeness. There is something about doing this action that does not make me feel zen at all. Like scribbling on the screen with my finger isn't relaxing to me. It feels like I'm cleaning something. You really need to think a bit about what is the person physically doing, and does that achieve what I want? Because this feels very frantic for me physically. I feel more zen when I'm playing Hearthstone than when I'm playing this. Think about what this action ends up achieving in the player. Okay, so we're doing a sort of pale yellow this time, so it looks like I shouldn't need the red at all. I think the structure of this tutorial is good. It introduces all of the different aspects of what you're doing in a very kind of step-by-step way. And that's particularly important because this isn't like based on any sort of genre of game that anyone would really recognize. So you really do need to tutorialize it in the most hands-on way possible, because it's not like you've made a match 3 game where people understand the basic gameplay already from playing other games. This is a quite an unusual premise. But I think that if you're going to have a very strong core premise of like this is relaxing, This isn't relaxing. I'm trying to match this color now. I can't do it probably because I've just got too many things. And then it says color matched, right? So my experience of playing this game is I am going ooh all over the screen, which is not relaxing. And then I move from a point of not being close to the goal to getting the color closer to the goal. So I think, okay, I'm going to get there eventually. And then I start messing around. And then when I do hit the goal, everything suddenly changes, which again is not relaxing. So my experience of this really is kind of being a little bit stressed out and then being surprised when I win because I've just been sort of messing about. Yeah, there's a game there in the sense that there are actions that I can do that lead me to a goal, and the goal is reasonably well signaled, but this is not relaxing. And I mean, we'll get on to the language and the idea of Zen in a moment, but this doesn't relax me at all. And let's see if I'm just stressed out by the tutorial. It has this function as well where you can choose the colors, which I quite like. Right, I think this is cute that you can choose the two colors, but then it does sort of beg the question of if I'm choosing two colors and then the entire game is going to be in those two colors, then how is it really a game about color? The colors are just two variables that can be changed for anything. I'm going to go with pink and turquoise. My touch is magic, thank you. No one's told me that for a while. Tap or swipe while glowing, avoid. Okay. Again, doesn't sound particularly relaxing. Again, I've just got no sense of when I'm close to the goal. I can see when the colour is sort of getting closer, but it doesn't feel like it's something I did really. It says, don't press the moon. What is relaxing about telling me I failed at a game because I touched a moon? I think what this game is trying to do is it's addressing quite an interesting design problem, which is like, how do you make a game where mixing and matching colours is the core mechanic? But I think wrapping it up in this idea of it being a relaxation game or a Zen game is taking it in the wrong direction. If you think of it in terms of design pillars, you've got colour as a design pillar. The player uses their sense of colour and mixing of colours to complete a goal within the game. Okay, that's great. But when you introduce the design pillar of relaxation, that really starts to impact how I view everything else in this game. If we come back a minute to things like art direction, one of the things that really kind of makes this feel, I don't want to say not thought through, because I think from a technical standpoint, this game has had a lot of attention gone into it. But when we start to think about things like the art direction, then the Zen thing falls apart even more, because what do astronauts have to do with Zen? Zen is an Eastern concept. It comes from a form of Buddhism. I don't want to criticize this game specifically for using this concept, because it's incredibly common to see this used in relaxation apps in general. But the idea of Zen Buddhism is antithetical to trying to relax by using your phone, right? It's to do with emptying your mind and not doing anything. I'm not a Zen Buddhist, I'm not an expert on it, but I know enough about it to know that it's probably not about trying to trick yourself into thinking you're doing something good for you while still being on your phone. We either need to lean into that really far with the design of everything, and that has to do with how the player physically interacts with the object, but it also has to do with all of the visual design. And I can't see how we get from Zen meditation to astronauts and stars. And they're really cute. I like the little sleepy faces on these astronauts, but a problem I'm having is that these make the game feel like it has a very specific audience. The thing I would associate these with would be something like a kind of duvet cover or a set of pajamas aimed at a small boy. It might not be universal, but in the culture that I'm from, cute space objects rendered in this style do point towards that. These artistic choices are signaling a particular gender and a particular age demographic. And when I read the description of the app and I look at this cute little app icon that reminds me of Headspace, I don't think that this is aimed at children. I think that this is something aimed at young adults who may be suffering anxiety or something like that. If you are aiming something at young adults, then the art style needs to reflect the tastes of that group, and I would be expecting to see something a bit more minimalist. It can still be cute, right? But if you look at the art style in Duolingo, it's minimalist and it's cartoony, but it doesn't look childish. And there's something about these thick black outlines that does make this look like it's aimed at small children. Why do I have that countdown timer flashing big numbers in my face if I'm supposed to be relaxing? There's another thing here about the graphic design that feels strange, is that when I make a star, You know, it's a very simple shape, a star. But then the rocket and the other illustrations, or the astronaut, sorry, there's a discrepancy in how visually complicated these two things are. I mean, there's a whole genre of games that are about colours and shapes and specific combinations of those things, right? Like match 3 games. If you play a match 3 game, the red piece and the green piece, they will have a different shape so that colorblind people can tell them apart, and that's great. But generally speaking, all of the pieces will be the same level of visual complexity. So if I've got a piece that's a star, then another piece is going to be a square or a circle. A star is a very different type of object to a little cartoon astronaut. If you look at, like, count the number of lines, right? It's one line around a very simple shape, and then the astronaut is a much more complex shape. And again, this stops them feeling like iconographic game elements like you would have in something like a match 3, and starts to make them feel more like illustrations. And then that again leads us down that path of this feels like something I would see on a 3-year-old's pajamas. And I'm not saying that to be mean, I'm just trying to communicate that all of these decisions about, like, the style of the art, the line weight, the choice of space iconography, if we want to go down that route of Chinese Zen Buddhism, why not have icons that fit within that? Why not have a flower and a rock? It's not a very exciting idea. It's always very easy for people to criticize what you're doing, but they can't always come up with good alternatives on the spot. I also get stars as a visual effect, and then an astronaut drops. It feels very strange to be using stars as a VFX for spawning things and as the item that spawned, and then on another object it's still stars. It kind of just feels like there are all of these little, like, visual design things that just need a bit more thought. This could be something decent, but it needs to work out what it is. It's not a relaxation app, it's a kind of cute little novelty game at this stage. And if it wants to be that, then that's fine. If it wants to be something that's sold as a meditation app, I would expect this red play in a way that doesn't require me to scribble with my finger. The game needs to end in a less abrupt way, it needs to start in a less abrupt way, and it really needs to lean into being relaxing, both visually and in terms of what it's asking me to do physically. The framing of this as a relaxation app is really hurting it, and it's also just hurting my ability to judge it on its own grounds. Colibrium as a concept of, like, getting equilibrium through balancing colours and that being a meditative thing. Great branding, really like it. But it's almost like, if you want this to be a meditation app with a small game element, then it has too much game in it already. Like, the number, it has a score going up. And I can think of little puzzle games that I found very meditative, like Monument Valley years and years ago, or something like Rimmed Capsule. And those are not billing themselves as a meditation app, but they're much more relaxing. And having things like something popping up on the screen that you're supposed to tap now, and a number going up, I feel like these elements are fighting against each other. A lot of these problems I'm talking about, they're not implementation problems. There are two core ideas in this game, and one is a sort of score chasing arcade game, and one is a meditation app, and they don't go together. I think if you want to iterate on this and improve it, it's going to be just really important to work out which of those things you're making, because at the moment it doesn't relax me. That's understandable, I'm a very difficult person to relax. There's a couple of ways that we can look at this in terms of what to do about it. What are the takeaways? What are the action points? Now, there is a set of easy things to do to make this game a better version of what it is. Address the issue with the color mixing, make it match the colors players would expect. I don't know how you achieve that, but I would try and do that. And then I would look at things like the visual effects, the countdowns, the end of level, and try and relax all of those things, mellow them out, make it all a bit more subdued. Even look at things like the typography. If we're trying to market this app as being in the same space as things like Headspace, or like any sort of app that helps you breathe. I used to use Lumen, which is like a light-based meditation app. Look at the way those are visually designed and what choices they've made to make the entire experience feel relaxing. Because I don't think lots of flashing stuff and quite chunky black text on a white background screams relax to me. The phone is full force, it's shining a flashlight in my face because it's white most of the time. There are lots of little changes that could be made in those areas to just bring the game towards this place where it feels a bit more like it's themed as a meditation app. Slowing everything down, making everything more relaxed, taking those harsh black outlines off of all the art, making it all feel a bit more minimalistic and relaxed, which is what a design studio would do if this was a kind of meditation app aimed at young adults and people that go to yoga and stuff like that. But that's the set of stuff that you can do something about, and you can iterate on what's here and try and make it a better version of what it already is. But if we want to look at some of the broader issues here, it's really this kind of fight between it being a meditation app and a game, right? If we put aside the fact that doing something is not meditating, right? The whole point of meditating is to not do something. Trying to encourage people to relax by using things like scores and stuff like that. There are just some elements that feel a bit too arcadey. Maybe those are easier to resolve than I think, you know. Think about the number going up for the score. I play games. I like numbers going up as much as anyone else. But what am I supposed to be comparing that number to? How do I know what a good score is? So at the moment it's kind of pointless except to see a number go up, which shouldn't really be the goal of something that's supposed to relax me. Watching a number go up and being excited about a number go up is about dopamine, which is not relaxation. Maybe there are other metaphors that you can give the player for doing well or scoring that aren't based on flashing lots of numbers up on the screen and watching a number go up. You know, maybe filling up a bar is better for what you want this game to be than having a number. I don't know why it would be, but these are the sorts of things that you need to experiment with when you're making something like this, and especially when you have such a lofty goal as it being a relaxation app. There's one other thing that I want to consider here. It might not be true of this particular project, it's just a feeling I get, right? I've seen hundreds and hundreds of games made by new developers in my time as a tutor and game jams and stuff like that. People have a tendency to try and attach some sort of goal that they think other people are going to think is good to a project because the project is weak. Oh, I've made a rhythm game, and by playing this you're going to get good at music. And it's like, actually the rhythm game is just a basic rhythm game. Sometimes when we don't feel confident about our own ability to execute something complex or flashy, we go down this route of saying, oh, I was trying to do this. I was trying to do something minimalistic, or actually it's supposed to be educational. We need to interrogate what we're saying is good or unique about our game. And if you find yourself saying, well, my game is good because it's going to have this great impact on people, it's going to improve their life in some way, are we just saying that because we think it will make up for being bad in other ways? I'm not necessarily saying that that is 100% true of this project, but there's a mixed message here in terms of some of the game mechanics, some of the user experience and graphic design, and what it says it's supposed to be from a marketing point of view. And it doesn't feel like the designer has researched loads of relaxing things and based this on that. It feels more like the person has had an idea for a game and started to develop that game and worked out this color matching mechanic, and then the kind of relaxation, good for you, find your inner peace, whatever business is like bolted onto that afterwards to try and add a perceived value to the thing, because it's not really achieving that goal of being relaxing at this stage. And that makes the claim to be relaxing, the claim to be a meditative activity, kind of makes it feel a bit false, and it makes it feel like it's trying to bolster the potential audience of this by saying, oh, you know, this will be good for you to do this. So I think that's worth thinking about, and it's not just relevant to this game. It's something I see time and time again when people are making, you know, early projects and stuff. It happens with things like politics as well, of like, you know, someone makes a visual novel, there's no real reason for people to want to play it, so they say, oh, it's about what's going on in Ukraine or something, and it's like you're trying to add this other dimension to it as part of the marketing, but that doesn't increase how good the base thing is. It has to be good in both ways at the same time. So if you're going to say, you know, this is a game and it's good as a game, and it's also this other thing, whether that other thing is a meditation app, reflective piece of art about something going on in the world, if you're saying it's two things, it has to still be good at being those two things. It can't be one of those things and then that excuses it from needing to be a good version of the other thing, right? It still needs to be a good game. I hope there's something here that the developer can learn from and use. You don't have to use any of this feedback, and some of it is more small tweaks you can make to the thing to just improve what it is, and some of it's more kind of baseline design philosophy of, was this a good idea in the first place? And that's the thing about game development, is you can have a design in your head, but until you start building it and iterating on it, it's very hard to know when something is a good idea or not. And even then, you might have a good idea and build a bad version of it, and then someone else is going to come along 3 years down the line and build a good version of it and prove that it wasn't a bad idea, you just executed it poorly. Them's the breaks. Games are hard.